Hi, how you doing, and welcome back to another video on the channel. What we have for you today is our wildcard video going into Game Week 9, and as you can tell by the title, it is 94% rated. And not only that, we do talk about different alternatives you could put into your team if you weren't a massive fan of some of the players that we suggest today. If you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. It is free, and that subscribe button is right there, and it really does help us out as a small channel that's trying to grow. So thank you to everyone who has supported the channel so far. We are recording this video before Sunday's games have kicked off, but unless there's some major injury news, there's not really anything that would make me change my mind on any of the players that we talk about today. But if there is some injuries, I'll pop it in the comments of some alternatives that you could get in instead. So let's take a look at the players. So we're going to start with the goalkeepers, and I've gone with Raya, but as he's the most expensive goalkeeper, you can literally swap him to anyone else if you feel like you could use the money elsewhere. I quite like Pickford as an option, but this team already has triple Everton, and the way I see it, whichever goalkeeper you get in, you kind of need to be happy with them all the way until your next wildcard, which could be up to 15 weeks. So it really is what you value more: cheaper keeper and reinvest, or a more expensive keeper with a probable better chance at clean sheets. I think you don't want to be using a free transfer on your keeper, so you do need to be comfortable with your selection, but either way, you don't want to be spending more than 4 million on a bench goalkeeper. I think whoever that is, you just need to look at spending that money elsewhere in your team and just have a 4 million keeper on your bench rather than worry about rotating your keepers in and out, because anyone can keep a clean sheet at any point and anyone can concede at any point. One thing I would just say with your bench goalkeeper is make sure that they're not from a team where you might want 3 outfield players. So for instance, I wouldn't get a cheap goalkeeper from Arsenal because I might want Gabriel, Saka and Havertz at some point in the near future, and having a goalkeeper from Arsenal on my bench would stop me from getting that. So onto the defence, and a bit like the goalkeepers, it doesn't seem to matter how expensive they are. Clean sheets are tough to come by. Therefore, to me, it makes sense to go cheap and try and invest the money in attacking premiums. I've opted for having Lewis, a great attacking option for the best team with awesome fixtures, and at 4.7 million with Rodri out, he is pretty much guaranteed to start, I feel like, and we know how good he is at passing that through ball, so he has got assists on the cards against teams like Southampton coming up. I think he's a really good pick. Mykolenko has Fulham, Southampton, West Ham, Brentford and Wolves in the next 6. Everton seem to have turned a bit of a corner, and he's cheap enough to stash on your bench with no worries, so when those fixtures do turn, he's not someone who you think, I need to transfer out, because it's not like you can sell him and get someone in who's loads cheaper to reinvest that money. He's just someone you would have comfortably on your bench. Fulham's fixtures have also turned. In fact, they play Everton next, followed by Brentford, Palace and Wolves. I think Robinson is the sort of player who can get attacking returns, but Fulham are the sort of team where he would need to be playing better opposition for that to happen more consistently. I think those fixtures coming up offer a really good opportunity to do so. I've put Leif Davis in here. I think he's good value, but your third bench player doesn't need to be a factor in your team. So if you want to save money, I think here it could be for a 4 million defender. But I think if you want someone to help with the fixture rotation, I'd go for Leif Davis. I think finally I've opted for Diogo Dalot. Now, I know putting a Man United defender in there might seem a little out there, but the fixtures are pretty decent. West Ham, Leicester and Ipswich in the next 4. And Dalot's actually played every minute of every game so far. A bit like Leif Davis, if you wanted a 4 million defender and you wanted to keep Leif Davis in your team, you could sell Diogo Dalot for a 4 million defender, and then you've got 1.1 million you can reinvest elsewhere as well. So there are options here where you could cut the prices even further. In midfield, I think you need at least 2 premiums. Foden and Palmer are my choice. Man City's fixtures are too good to pass up on, and Foden is the dream differential right now. He's still under 6% owned at time of recording, and he was the Premier League's player of the season last season. Like, that doesn't go away overnight. He's still got that proven quality. Palmer is fixture proof, and when Game Week 12 rolls around, he's going to be on everyone's team's wish list. I think in the meantime, you wouldn't back against him returning against Man United or Newcastle either. I think if I was using a free transfer, I probably wouldn't get Palmer in right now. But if you're wildcarding, wanting to shake your team up and making wholesale changes, I think he's an absolute must to get ahead of the curve. Even though he's quite highly owned, someone who's 40% owned, there's still more fantasy league players who don't own him than own him. So in that sense, he is still a really good pickup. And Mbeumo has Ipswich, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton and Leicester till game week 14. I think when game week 14 rolls around, you're probably going to want to swap him out, but there's still enough mileage to bring him in now. You've not missed the boat with that. I'm rounding out the midfield with Smith Rowe and McNeil. The problem is their teams aren't super consistent, but at 5.7 million, you shouldn't expect much more from them than, the occasional return. I think if I had to pick one, I'd go for McNeil. He's actually got 7 returns in the last 7, and playing centrally looks great for him. The next few weeks are really ones that Everton can capitalise on. Smith Rowe is still a good option, but I think he's the one you'd sell in game week 14 to upgrade Mbeumo to a premium midfielder to give you, say, Saka, Palmer and Foden. Obviously, you need a bit more money elsewhere, and we're going to talk about that now with the strikers where you could save that further. So up front, Haaland is a must, and he's a captaincy option for the next month. It's not really a discussion, so I don't want to spend too much time on there. Alongside him, we have Calvert-Lewin and Matthias Cunha. Now, if I had to pick one, I'd go with Cunha. I think 3 goals in the last 7, and Brighton, Palace, Southampton, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton and West Ham in the next 7. He's likely coming into my own FPL team, which we'll talk about in a separate video later this week. But I think he's a really underrated option, and he's someone who, if you can score 3 goals in 7 games for Wolves when they're pretty much losing every game, then you've probably got a good chance of scoring when they could be winning games against better opposition. Calvert-Lewin is still nice, especially for the next 4, but I'm just not sure you can rely on him long term. I think if you weren't fussed about the bench, you could drop him down to a 4.5 million at that price and reinvest the funds elsewhere to help him upgrade Mbeumo in game week 14. I think I wouldn't have a problem starting someone like Diogo Dalot and Leif Davis, and then you can swap out Smith Rowe and Calvert-Lewin instead. You could also start Matthias Cunha just to help you sort of balance the bench out. It depends where you want to place your value, either on bench depth or attacking premiums. So overall, this team rating is 94%. So shout out to Fantasy Football Hub. The data is great, but it's not everything. I think what FPL has shown us and continues to show us is that you can't predict everything that's going to happen in a weekend, right? Look at this weekend on Saturday. There's so many red cards. People have had minus points from defenders, and the data wouldn't have shown you that. So 94% is great, but it's not the be-all and end-all. It just helps us sort of confirm that we're on the right tracks. So the team value is 99.8 million. So hopefully, if you've still got a team value of 100 million, you should be able to afford this team. If you've owned a player like Haaland for a long time, then you'll save 0.4 million as well, which is maybe something that you could also use to maybe upgrade a defender. If you wanted a defender from a more consistent team than the ones we've got, you could put one in there. So the strengths are that there's a strong bench. We kind of touched on this already, and it's good for the long term. I think having a strong bench is important as we go into winter because there's a lot of fixture congestion. There's another international break, and there is some European football, and sometimes players just get rested. So being able to bring a player off your bench that will not only play but has a good chance of contributing is really valuable. The weaknesses are there's possibly not enough big hitters. I would like to have a third attacking midfielder, but we have talked about how we can get to that point. So you could get to that point right now if you wanted to and just not bring in some of the players we talked about for cheaper options and upgrade there. But I think you can hold off on that in the immediate future. It does also bring benching headaches. So it relies on you to be able to keep your finger on the pulse a bit with what's going on in FPL, which teams are likely to rotate players. Is a player not going to play that weekend, or are they going to come off the bench and give you less minutes than what you'd hoped for? So there does need to be that sort of active FPL manager who is going to keep an eye on the bench and make sure that they are playing the players they want to play every week. If that's you, then that shouldn't be a problem. If that's not you, then I would maybe look at trimming the bench down a little bit and then having a bit more of a settled starting 11 that you can rely on week in and week out. So that is the team. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any players that you think I've missed, anyone that you think I should bring in. And if you've got any questions in general, pop them in the comments and I will get back to you. Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully you're having a good game week. I will see you in the next one, as we're going to bring out some more videos later this week.